Elch and Ann, welcome. We're about to start our lesson today. We're looking at part 2 of the lesson on people pleasing. Part 2 of the lesson on people pleasing. I'll start off by reading Galatians 1:10. It says, For am I now seeking the favor of people or of God? Or am I striving to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a bondservant of Christ. So that's Paul talking. So I heard a pastor say once that he said, even God can't please everybody. He said, even God can't please everybody. And I was like, wait, what's he talking about? But he said, imagine there's a football game. You got the Lions versus the Tigers. He said, you got people on the Lions praying that the Lions win. You have people on the Tigers side praying that the Tigers win. He said, both of them aren't going to be happy. He said, both of them aren't going to be happy. You know, you have some people praying for sunshine and some people praying for rain. You have multiple people praying that they get the same job. So somebody's going to be unhappy. So that's what he meant when he said God can't make everybody happy. You have multiple people praying that the same person will be their spouse. So everybody's not going to get their prayer answered. So we want to go through life realizing that we're not always going to make everybody happy. That shouldn't be our expectation, that everybody will always be happy. Welcome, Lil. Always be happy with us. And so I heard it say that your funeral is only time when everyone is going to speak positively about you. Your funeral is the only time when everyone speaks positively about you. So this is part 2. Welcome, McLovin. Part 2 on the lesson on people pleasing. In part 1 of the lesson, we looked at a specific way of approaching life that some people have, and we referred to those people as people pleasers, based on a specific way that they approach life. You know, they're on the surface, it's Christian-like and godly. The people pleasers are helpful, they're serving, they're slow to anger, but then we saw that there also can be some negative traits associated with it. In today's lesson, we're finishing up that portion, but then we're also looking at the people pleasing that we all do. You know, that we're all people pleasers at some times, and how our people pleasing can impact our relationship with God. So in the email, I sent out 3 questions. I asked, do you hide the fact that you're a Christian at work? Do you withhold your true opinion to be politically correct? Are your opinions of friends, family, and coworkers more important than God's opinion of you? So today we're looking at part 2 of people pleasing. Part 2 of people pleasing. And as our outline, we will be looking at outline. First, we'll look at the introduction in people pleasing part 2. The introduction. Then we'll talk about the traits of wholeness. Then we'll review the last lesson, people pleasing. Then we'll ask, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do if Jesus was a people pleaser? And we'll look at practical steps to overcome people pleasing. And then we'll start with the new portion, looking at King Saul, people pleaser, looking at 1 Samuel chapter 15, King Saul, the people pleaser. Then we'll look at the pitfalls of people pleasing that we can all run into, and then some practical steps that we can all take to avoid the scenario of people pleasing. All right, so here we go. So we are in a series called Seeking Wholeness. We're in a series called Seeking Wholeness. You're doing homework, but you're listening? Okay, great. Yeah, one ear listening, one ear writing. So we're in a series Seeking Wholeness. The series we're talking about how to be spiritually, emotionally, and mentally healthy, because we're dealing with life's current situations and also how to be healed from wounds and experiences of the past. So as Christians, we're not just supposed to experience eternal life. We were also promised joy, peace, patience, and self-control while we're here on earth. But a lot of us don't reach those things. We don't get, we're trusting that we have salvation, but we don't have joy and peace. Welcome, Mace. We don't have joy, peace, and patience here on earth. So some of the traits of wholeness that we're looking for, are the traits that we're striving for are authenticity, honesty, kindness, not seeking external validation and approval, living by values and principles, being able to set boundaries, taking ownership of your responsibilities, living with purpose and passion, optimism, confidence, having healthy relationships with other people, not losing your control or your emotions, being free from addictions and addressing conflict, vulnerability, not being critical or judgmental, not being jealous. We want to be able to forgive other people who have wronged us. We want to know that you're worthy of receiving love. We want to not be afraid to fail. So the traits that we're striving for to be whole, able to manage irrational fear, worry, and anxiety, selfless encounters with other people, not manipulating others to try to control their actions or their reactions. You actually care about how other people feel. Patience, the traits that we're striving for, not giving in to peer pressure or social pressure. You can communicate directly and being led by the Spirit. So those are the goals that we're striving for. It'll be a lifelong journey, but we're striving for those traits of wholeness as we define them. So those are the traits that we're looking at for this series. Let's see, any thoughts or comments so far? Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad you love the content, Sinjo. Welcome. Hard to forgive those who wrong me. Yes, it's a hard. My stories are great. Thank you. Yeah, forgiving is hard. There's a series on forgiving in the link in my bio, but forgiving is a tough one because we feel the pain from it. That's a tough one to overcome. Let's see. Oh, thank you. All right, so we'll review the last lesson. The last lesson we looked at people pleasing. So we were looking at a way of walking through life, what we call people pleasing. People pleasers, as we defined it, have a hard time saying no. They spend a lot of their time doing things for other people, and they're doing things that they don't want to do. So that was kind of the characteristic of it. Is it's not all out of love and joy of doing it. Some things they were being done to look good. Some things that were done was because they were scared to say no. Some things they were done because they feel like they're a good person in it, and this is what good people should do. So this is what they should do to look like a good person. So we describe people pleasing as you have a belief that if you're good, then you'll be loved, you'll get your needs met, and you'll live a problem-free life. People pleasers feel that if they're good and they do the right things, then they'll be loved, they'll get their needs met, and they'll live a problem-free life. But their actions are often shaped by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of disapproval, fear of getting an angry response from the other person. They do something because they don't want the other person to respond angrily. Fear of not being liked or fear of being judged. So their actions are motivated by fear versus being motivated by love in a lot of times. So obviously it can be a combination. It's not necessarily 100% of the time. And so we're not talking about obeying God. When we're talking about people pleasing, we're not talking about taking care of your responsibilities. The fact that you work and you feed your child every day, we're not calling that people pleasing. Taking care of your responsibilities is not what we're calling people pleasing. That's something you need to do. We're not talking about obeying authority. We're not talking about obeying your parents. Your parents told you to clean your room, you cleaned it. We're not calling that people pleasing. We're not talking about providing for your children, providing for your family, loving and respecting your spouse. We're not talking about common courtesy, not being rude. Someone asks you to pass the salt and you pass it. That's not people pleasing, that's just common courtesy. We're not talking about something you're doing to avoiding harm. You're being nice to a person so they don't punch you. That's not the people pleasing we're talking about either. So we're talking about it's motivated by other people's opinion of them, other people's approval, wanting to be liked. We talked about some of the causes of people pleasing, some of the way people become people pleasing as a child. As a child, maybe your feelings were invalidated. So at growing up, your parents would say, oh no, you're not mad. Oh, you're going to do this and you're going to like it. So you had feelings, but you were told that your feelings were wrong. You were told that no, you shouldn't be angry. No, you're not sad. And so you couldn't trust your own emotions. You learned not to trust your own emotions. You had to hide your emotions. You couldn't show your real emotions. And so your feelings were invalidated. That's one way that people become people pleasers. Another way that people become people pleasers is that you have to manage your parents' feelings. Don't make mommy mad. Maybe if your dad left your mom and your mom was sad, so you took on the responsibility, let me make you happy. She was lonely, let me not make you lonely. You had to control your dad's anger. You had to make sure your dad didn't get angry. So you were trying to control the emotions of your parents. That can make you a people pleaser. And then lastly, if you were not allowed to make decisions. So you grew up in an environment where you were old enough at some point to make decisions, but you weren't allowed to make them. So that can lead to being a people pleaser as well. Some of the characteristics of people pleasing: you seek validation through approval. So you want other people to approve of you, and that's what makes you feel your self-worth. You want other people to like you. You're really worried about what other people think about you. You're really worried about if other people like you, and that's what you use to determine your self-worth. People pleasers avoid conflict. There's an issue, but they won't bring it up. They won't address it. They avoid the conflict at all costs. People pleasers avoid conflict. They agree with who's in front of them at the time. They'll agree, oh yeah, I can help you on Saturday, help you move. Someone else is like, hey, can you help me move? Oh yeah, I can help you on Saturday. It's like, wait, there's only so many Saturdays. Or it's like they're with the Republicans and, oh yeah, this is great. They're with the Democrats. This is great. Oh, I'm with the Raiders fan. Oh yeah, that's great. I'm with the 49er fans, and I'm for the, over here it's like Jordan is the greatest. Over here, yeah, LeBron, I agree, he's the greatest. It's like whoever they're in front of, they agree with. Not being able to say no. They can't say no. When people ask them to do something, they don't want to do it. Now, if you're doing it because you genuinely want to help and you're doing it out of love, that's not a problem. That's what we want to do as Christians. But if you're doing it because you're worried about the response or worried about how you're going to look, then that's what we're calling people pleasing. Another trait is you take responsibility for other people's emotions. So if someone is angry, you feel that you need to do something so they're not angry anymore. If someone is unhappy, you take, especially in a relationship, you take on the responsibility of the other person's emotions. If they're feeling bad, if they're feeling sad. So true, man, yeah. However they're feeling, you take responsibility for their emotions. And so you can't really be happy if they're unhappy. So those are some of the traits of people pleasers. And people pleasing is something, I've struggled with much of my life. And so this lesson was speaking to me as well. So this is something I've been working on for the past few years. And so like all of these traits, everybody doesn't have necessarily, these aren't necessarily all people pleasers have all of these traits that we're going to talk about, especially some of the negative ones we're going to get into. But in general, in relationships, you can be clingy and needy as a people pleaser, or you can be the kind of person that will reject them before they reject you. One of the traits of people pleasing that we didn't talk about last week is external referencing. External referencing. So what is external referencing? External referencing versus internal referencing. So an internal referencing person, they decide whether or not they did something well or whether or not something was right based on standards that they have. An externally referenced person will decide whether they did something right or whether they did a good job based on other people's standards. For the social media world, I'll decide if this post was good based on how many people like it. I'm externally referencing. It's based on other people's versus myself, which, is normal to some extent. But, do you need to have discussions with other people before you decide your opinion on something? Do you need to find out what everybody else thinks before you know your opinion on something? Then you're external referencing. Or do you know what's right and wrong without having to consult other people because you have an internal reference? So it's not always wrong to externally reference. Obviously, as Christians, we want to reference the Bible and reference God. If God says it's right, then it's right. We want to reference God. And then it's also, you can have a mentor, a counselor, a subject matter expert. If the plumber tells you absolutely don't want to do something and 5 plumbers have told you don't want to go and say, I think I'll go ahead and do it anyway. So if you got a subject matter expert, you want to get their opinion, you want to refer to them, and sometimes iron sharpens iron. If you have people where they have the same values, the same beliefs, you may get other opinions, and people that have common values, positive intention for your life, and that have good motives. They're not somebody who's motivated out of selfishness, so it's not a relationship where they're going to benefit from you doing something, and so you may want to reference those opinions. I've seen externally referenced. I remember one time I was buying some shades, and my ex-girlfriend was telling, because I didn't really care about like brands of clothing or anything. I was like, why would I spend? I can get a pair of shades for $20. It looked just as good as these whatever name brand shades. And so you're a Buddhist here for conversation. Okay, welcome. So you can chime in. So we're going to be based on the Bible, but you'll be able to, but a lot of it's based on just general people, human nature, and general life. So I was looking for some shades, and she said, you should get these. And so I said, well, let me ask somebody else. I said, okay, which of these shades do you think these shades look good? And the woman said, well, what brand are they? I was like, oh, okay. I guess people do pay more. I was like, I'll just ask you, do they look good? And you need to know what brand they are. Yeah. I was like, I didn't realize people were paying so much attention to this stuff. Or I remember asking someone, they were, a young person, Yelper, and saying they wanted to try out this restaurant. And I said, well, do you think you'll like it? They're like, I know I'll like it, because it was like the trendy restaurant that everybody liked. So they already made up their mind that they were going to like it. So we often do this with fashion. So something may be out of fashion, but then something may not be in fashion, but then we when other people are wearing it, we think it looks good. Ask them, sunglasses make you look fat. You've done that, yeah. So sometimes you get a reference, an external reference. So fashion, sometimes something, or pop music. You hear a song, you don't like it, but they keep playing it, and eventually you start to like it. That's kind of how the music is designed. Okay. And so with fashion, we have that. So how many of you have had what fashion article of clothing or something that you've had, or hairstyle that you've had that you thought was great back then, but you really think is horrible now? What are some examples of that you have? Something that you thought was great back then, but you wouldn't get caught wearing it now.
No way.
Hello, welcome. Any examples from any of you guys? Any of you used to wear bell bottoms? Anything like that? No? Okay. All right. 90s high hair. Yeah. The flat top. I had a flat top. I had a jerry curl. I had a few different haircuts. Fashion goes in and out. Yeah. All the old stuff comes back around. It does. Yeah, a lot of the stuff is coming back around now. And you pull it. If you kept it, you can pull it out of the closet. Now you like it again. You didn't like it last year. Now I like it again. because we're external referencing. So some of the pitfalls of being a people pleaser, some of the downfalls that happen for being a people pleaser. We talked about covert contracts. So a lot of time people pleasers will have, do you go live? I go live again in 2 weeks, Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific. So the pitfalls of being a people pleaser, covert contracts. So covert contracts mean that you have a contract that you've made with the person, but you didn't tell them about it. So for instance, you may think, if I do this for this person, then they're going to do this for me in return. If I do that, then they'll do this in return. But they didn't actually know that this was a contract. You expect, okay, if I'm doing this in a relationship, then they're going to do that. But you never actually told them about it. You never discussed it. It was a covert. It was a hidden contract that you had. So that's one of the downfalls of people pleasing. Another is that you get built up resentment. So you get built up resentment because your needs aren't being met. And then you don't want to express your needs to the other person. You expect them just to meet them. You're doing all this for the other person, but they may not be returning it, or they may not appreciate it. So you get resentment. You get bitter because you don't feel appreciated. Another negative that you can have as a people pleaser is hiding your flaws, because you think that if people know your flaws, if they know, then they won't like you. So you have to appear to be perfect. You have to appear to have everything together, and you're not vulnerable. And so the lack of vulnerability causes a lack of authentic connection, because since you can't really expose your true self and to people, then you can't have true connection, because you're not telling the person what you like and don't like. So they're not able to adjust themselves to what you want. And so you don't get authentic connection. Another downfall of people pleasing is that you may not stand for anything. You don't really have an opinion that you're strong about. Mm-hmm. It's like if you're in a group and they disagree with it, you won't stand for it. You're hiding your true self. Yeah, hiding the true self. So you don't stand for anything. You don't own your mistakes. So as a people pleaser, you may not own your mistakes. You want to cover it up. You want to minimize it. You may be blaming other people or misdirect, point to something else. You made a mistake and you want to, well, what about you? You did this and this. A lot of times people pleasers will feel guilty doing something for themselves. They may feel like they're being selfish. If they want to have something nice or do something fun, they may feel like that they shouldn't do that. It's kind of selfish, so they won't do something nice for themselves as a people pleaser. Their self-esteem is in the hands of other people. How they feel about themselves, their self-worth is based on how other people react to them. So that's one of the problems with people pleasing. And so then you're susceptible to manipulation. Let's stay positive. Yeah, let's stay positive. So you always want to bring out the positive side. So they're susceptible to manipulation because, one, people can ask for more than they should, keep asking them to do more and more things, knowing that they won't say no. Or two, knowing that they're going to cater to their emotions, they can get mad whenever the people pleaser asks them to do something. And since the people pleaser is going to try to now make them not mad, they can manipulate the person, manipulate them with anger, manipulate with tears, so you could become susceptible to manipulation. And then finally, people pleasers, you attract the wrong type of people into your lives often, because you'll attract people who are takers, people who are narcissists, people who are users, and even psychopaths, so people who want that. Because there's some people, interesting thing, when I talked to a couple of people telling them I was doing this lesson on people pleasers, and I was telling people about it, and I've generally thought everyone had a positive opinion on people pleasers. A couple people I talked to, they're like, oh yeah, I hate people like that. People say, oh yeah, I don't really like people pleasers. You can't trust them. And it was like, but the people who will gear towards people pleasers are the people who are users and takers and narcissists, because they don't necessarily need authenticity. They just want somebody to do what they want. So that's a review of the last lesson on people pleasers. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on the last lesson? Any thoughts or comments? No? Okay. Got my wife listening to this. She's a healthcare provider. Patients can be manipulative. Yeah, patients can probably be manipulative. Yeah, we have a healthcare provider, a couple of healthcare providers. Well, let's see, no, a healthcare provider on the line. Peter, yeah, patients can be manipulative. So let's see, what would Jesus do? So I'll ask a question. Was Jesus a people pleaser?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Provider. I think there's a difference to being a provider and people pleasing.
Yeah, there's a difference. She wants to be a people pleaser. Jesus was not, correct. She wants to be a people pleaser. Okay. Well, as long as she takes just the positive traits. But, yeah, Jesus, so Firehorse says Jesus was not. Kikwa, you say you don't think so. Jesus, so what would Jesus have done differently if Jesus was a people pleaser? So let's look at people pleasing Jesus. How would people pleasing Jesus be different than the Jesus we know of? What are some things he would have done differently?
You know, Mike, I have a comment.
I think every prayer would be answered.
Every prayer would be answered. What if it's two people praying for the same job?
You know.
He created a new one. Every prayer would be answered. What were you going to say, Peter?
I'm sorry. Have you read the book by Townsend, something about boundaries?
I'm finishing that. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that in a few of the future lessons. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I signed up for one of the classes one time that someone was offering at one point, and I'm trying to be kind of in the middle, so it doesn't corrupt you in any way. Okay, Michael. Okay. You know, I some of the things that Townsend and the other guy talks about is quite good, but I overall do not agree with it. You know, because if Jesus was a people pleaser, he would have boundaries. I mean, think about it, okay?
He would have boundaries, or he wouldn't?
He would, let's see, he would have boundaries.
If he was a people pleaser?
Would he have boundaries? Let's see, let me try to think. I'm trying to reason. I don't think Jesus has any boundaries. I think he's very open. You know, just like when the centurion's servant was sick, he got up. He says, "Let me go there." You know, I mean, he didn't have any 8 to 5 type of thing. Like, for example, like if Jesus was like thinking about, okay, 8 o'clock's my cutoff point at night, and then someone comes over at quarter to 8 and says, you know, hey Jesus, you know, I wonder if you can. He goes, hey, listen, I only got 15 minutes. I need to get my rest. You know, that would have been a lot of restriction, you know, to the God we serve. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't think the Lord had any boundaries in all areas. He was boundless, and he was constantly giving much more than he should, all the way to the cross, all night.
Oh, get a Red Bull off the refrigerator.
I like that. Ooh, I can't hear you, Mike. Sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah. So Jesus, he had some boundaries, but I see what you're saying. Yeah, he gave a lot, and he kept giving. So one point that Firehorse is making is that Jesus called the religious leaders hypocrites. So the people pleasing Jesus, he would have been concerned that the religious leaders were not they didn't like him. He would have lost sleep over the fact that the Pharisees didn't like him. You know, he would have been trying to win them over. You know, they asked him to stop. If he didn't have boundaries, he would have said, okay, I'll stop. They asked him to stop teaching in the church. He would have said, okay, I'll stop teaching in the church. You know,
I guess so.
He would have listened to them, and then People-pleasing Jesus would have watched them stone the adulterous woman. You know, the whole crowd was against her. He would have, he wouldn't have jumped in and tried to stop it.
Yeah. I guess if I have to rephrase it and think about it, you know what I'm saying?
But I guess I guess maybe you're thinking for those he was called to, for those he served, he went out of his way, and maybe he did things. Although, you know, sometimes he would leave the crowd. He would say, let's go. They want him to stay, but he would say, let's go take a boat to get to the other side. Or he would go off to rest. He would leave. Yeah, but I see what you're saying. Jesus would also, if he was a people-pleasing Jesus, would have led a revolt against the Romans. Interesting point. So he said people-pleasing Jesus would have led a revolt against the Romans. And the reason he's saying that is because the Jews' concept of a Messiah, when Jesus said, I'm the Messiah, what they heard was, I'm the guy who's going to be the military leader, who's going to take back the power from the Romans, and now Israel is going to be the head of the earth, and God is going to rule through Israel. That was what the Jews were expecting. That's why when Jesus got captured by the Romans, they were like, okay, this guy isn't him. Because they weren't expecting somebody that's going to die on the cross. They were expecting a military leader to come and defeat the Romans. So when they were praying for a Messiah, that was what they were hearing. We want a guy who's going to come and take over the kingdom on earth and rule and make Israel number one again. Well, I don't know if they ever were, but anyway, make Israel, the strongest nation on earth, and then God will rule through us on earth. And so, yeah, people-pleasing Jesus would have done that, because that's what they want. That's what they wanted from him. But people-pleasing Jesus, so he could have done that, but he would have had a dilemma. Or people-pleasing Jesus would have just stopped saying he was the Messiah, because he was making a lot of people mad. Everybody was getting upset. He was like, let me just stop mentioning this Messiah thing. It seems to be causing me a lot of trouble. People don't like me. People want to kill me. Hezbollah playing. I don't know Hezbollah. I forgot it. From the biblical sense, how does Hezbollah? Does anybody know Hezbollah?
How do you spell that name?
Hezbollah. Let's see. Turning water to wine. Turning water to wine was people-pleasing because it wasn't his time. He said, woman, it's not my time. But he did it anyway to please his mom. He was pleasing. He was, being obedient. So people-pleasing Jesus wouldn't have said, the law says it's a sin to commit adultery, but I say, even if you look at a woman, it's a sin. And remember, he had the Sermon on the Mount with 5,000 people, or Hamas. The organization constantly attacking Israel. Oh, well, we won't get into that today. We're talking about people pleasing now. Let's see. So Jesus said. Jesus was giving a sermon to 5,000, and he said something, and then he lost a big chunk of the crowd. And then they said, "Ooh, your teaching is hard." And then he said, "Well, if you're gonna follow me, you need to eat my flesh and drink my blood." And then he lost all 5,000 of them, and it was only his 12 disciples left. So he wasn't afraid to say stuff. He had a whole crowd of people listening to him. He had the attention, he had the attention of the whole crowd. He got all the attention. Everybody wanted to hear what he said. So people pleaser would be happy. Hey, everybody likes me. But then he would just say stuff that everybody didn't like. And so everybody left, and it was just him and his disciples. He says, "Are you guys going to leave me too?" And they said, where else are we going to go? You have the words of life. And it was just the 12 disciples. So he said he would say stuff to offend everybody. He said stuff that they didn't understand. They didn't understand what he was really saying, but he didn't bother to clarify. And Jesus also, he he gave parables knowing that they didn't understand. He said the point of the parable, he said, why do you speak in parables? A lot of times you hear always speak in parables because stories are good to give illustrations and understand. But Jesus said the reason he spoke in parables were because it was only the disciples that were supposed to understand, not everybody else. So he wasn't trying to let the whole audience understand. He wasn't trying to please the whole audience. He was like, this is for you guys to understand. Everybody else here, I'm not really worried about them. They thought he was crazy. Yeah, he said, drink my flesh. Yeah, eat my blood. Yeah, they thought it was crazy and they left. So he wasn't afraid to say stuff and he didn't feel like he had to explain himself. If he would explain what he meant, they would have stayed. But he decided, let him go. Let him go. Let him go and hate me and think I'm crazy. That's okay. He was okay with that. He wouldn't have went in and turned the tables over in the temple. Definitely, I can't, how many of us would do that? If we saw something going on wrong in our church, would go in and not be afraid of what how many of us would be, we'd probably be concerned if the elders and Pastor Gary didn't like us. If the elders and our pastor didn't like us, we'd probably be upset about it. We would, would we go in and do something defying them because we thought it was opposite of the Bible? But Jesus, he went ahead and defied them. He knew they would not like him, and then, they disliked him so much that they killed him. So he definitely didn't please them. He knew who he was correctly. Yes, Christians, we're to be so bold. Yes. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How we may all people please sometimes as Christians. All right. So now, we talked about, people pleasing. So we talked about last week one solution to people pleasing. And now we'll get into some more. So these are solutions for people who are people pleasers. So people pleasers, who has Colossians 3:13? So the first solution was that was Chris. Put your identity in Christ. This is a deep topic.
Colossians 3, 1 through 3. Since then you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God.
All right. You died, and your life is now hidden in Christ. So the first solution to people pleasing, this was the people who are people pleasers, as we defined it, is to set your identity in Christ. So set your self-worth, your self-esteem is tied to your relationship with Christ. It's not tied to the opinions of other people. It's not tied to your job. It's not tied to what kids your school go to. It's not tied to the fact that you were a cheerleader back in high school or you were the star quarterback back then. Your identity is tied to your relationship in Christ. So the next solution, if you're a people pleaser, not solution, but a practical thing that you can do, is to track your time commitment. So if you have a trouble saying no, a lot of times I gave the example of my cousin, he agreed, hey, after we go to church, we can go do this and look at those shoes. And I heard him agreeing over the next couple of days at the family reunion to a few other people. And it's like, well, wait a minute, we can't do all of those things. So keep track of your time commitments. Keep track of how many times you say yes to people. But take account of your actual bandwidth before you say yes. Think about the traffic. Think about, are you going to be tired? So think about how much bandwidth you actually have before you agree to do everything. And, use your energy for things that align with your values, align with God's values, and the things that you want to do. Obviously, so if you, it's not necessarily wrong to, overcommitting. So don't overcommit, because a lot of times, especially the biggest time that's a problem is when you overcommit. You say yes, but you either know or you think you might back out later on. Like a lot of times people will say yes, but they kind of know they're going to back out later on. You definitely don't want to do that. And why are you saying yes? Is it for yourself or is it for other people? Are you saying yes because you want to do it? If you genuinely want to do it, again, then by all means do it. If you're doing it because, to show love, show the love of Christ, then do it. But if it's something you don't want to do, but you just want to look good, then, think about it. Think about how much time you have. Think about that. The next thing to do is to identify, areas that you seek approval. Just look at the things you do in your life to try to get approval from others. Is it how much time you spend on your hair? Is it when you hold the door open for someone? You cleaning your kitchen, cleaning your car, washing your car. When you walk in the park with your kid to try to get noticed, or walking with your dog to get noticed. How many things are you doing to actually? So try to take note of things that you're doing to actually get approval or applause from other people. And once you do that, consider, if you are a people pleaser and you want to get over it, consider one of those things that you realize you're doing just for approval. Consider not doing it at all for a couple of months. Not washing your car for a couple of months, not doing your hair. So actually, you guys will remember last year I had an afro. Yeah, I cut my hair every week, but I realized I was doing that because I was so concerned with my appearance, not partially, but also out of habit. But so I intentionally decided, okay, I'm not going to cut my hair. I'm not going to cut my hair as an exercise to not people please. I'm going to grow it to a point where it's not attractive anymore. So I intentionally did that. So find an area where to do something. Stop doing something you're doing to people please. Just stop doing it for a couple of months. Another thing you can do is reveal yourself to self people. So reveal your true self. Reveal some of your flaws. But make sure it's safe people, somebody you trust. Don't just go up to anybody and tell them your darkest secrets, what you did back in college or whatever. But so find somebody you can trust and actually start to reveal yourself to them is another step you can take. And then lastly, a step you can take as a people pleaser is to start to address conflict. So don't avoid conflict. And one way to do that is a lot of people pleasers have anxiety. So use your anxiety for you. So if you have something you're not facing, somebody isn't doing something's not getting addressed, think about the fact, okay, what is this going to look like 3 to 5 years from now if I never bring this up? What will life be like 3 to 5 years from now if I don't bring this up? So use your anxiety to help you do the right thing. You're not sure about the revealing idea? It can be helpful. It can be helpful because the guilt and the shame, but you do it with a safe person, because then you get to realize that even though you're imperfect, people can still love. People aren't going to all run away from you because you're imperfect. It's not your perfection why people like you, why people love you. It's not because you're perfect. It's just because of you. So it gets rid of the thought that I have to be perfect in order for people to like me. It's for prayer. Prayer, definitely. Okay. Well, glad you could be here, Firehorse. See you next time. Yeah, definitely. And take it to God in prayer. Take it to God in prayer. Your people pleasing. And you go to prayer. Go to prayer. If you're going to expose yourself to someone, go to prayer with that first, and because you definitely have to make sure it's the right person. Make sure it's the right person and the right time.
And one little suggestion or one thing that I found, I happen to be people, I can't remember the term, but anyway, one thing I tried to do was to start small.
Mm.
For instance, there was some thing that I got got invited to and they really wanted to do this, and I'm like, and my normal people pleasing thing would be, okay, that's what they want, that's what we're gonna do. And it wasn't that I didn't want to do it, but then they said, okay, well, we're gonna meet and do this at 6 o'clock in the morning. And personally, I'm not a morning person. But in the past, I would have always just gone with the flow and said, okay, yeah, that's fine. And it's like, well, yeah, I can do this, and I can do this at 6 o'clock in the morning. So kind of like you said, Michael, is that going to end up making me resentful? Am I doing it because I don't want to address conflict, or I don't want to put my 2 cents in and say, well, maybe we should try this. And I thought, okay, well, just, put a little boundary out there and say, I really would like to do this with you. I understand that you want to be there early, but but honestly, I don't want to get up on my last day of vacation and have to leave my house at 6 in the morning. That's it. I feel like that's unsafe for me. What about if we go up the night before and get the 3 of us stay at a hotel and get an early start so that we don't have to drive because we had to drive for like 2 or 3 hours to get there. So that's why they wanted to leave at 6 in the morning. But in the past, I would not have even said, I really would prefer not to leave at 6 in the morning. I would have just said, okay, I'll do it. And then I would have not necessarily been happy about it.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
But just to put a little boundary in place, and start small and see how it goes. Because people that are used to you being a people pleaser or not putting in boundaries, you get a little pushback. You can get pushback, but it's okay.
Yeah, you're going to get pushback. Yeah, and it's okay. And you don't want to. A lot of times people will, full swing the other direction and just resist. So you don't want to blow out all your close relationships, immediately.
No, but even just saying something like, hey, I really want to do this. Can we make a compromise and leave at 8?
Yeah.
Instead of, okay, I'm just automatically going to agree to 6 in the morning.
Right.
Or
Right.
Can we at least look at these other options?
Yeah.
And you can only decide, yes, we're going to do this at 6.
Right.
Or you can say, maybe I'll join you next time, or maybe I'll go at 6, but at least I've put my 2 cents in.
Right. Yeah. And at least you expressed what you were feeling. You expressed what you were feeling and what you were thinking. And that's kind of the regret we have later is when we just agree to it. If you express it, at least you feel a little, even if you end up having to do it, you feel a little better the fact that at least I expressed how I feel. And there's some people, you're gonna find, maybe you have some people in your life that they don't care what you feel, or then that will, now you'll know. Now you know. Now you know who those people are.
But anyway, so start small and just
start small.
Try little things.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Sabaka. So back to the exposing yourself to people. Sabaka feels that you are allowed to choose. You're allowed to choose. I'm not sure what that means. Exposing your stuff to gain acceptance by the world. Yeah. Well, not necessarily the world. This is not like saying go broadcast to the world. This is saying someone who's close to you, not to have to choose to. Yes, you're allowed to choose. I'm not exactly sure what that. Yeah, so you're allowed to choose. So so exposing yourself to a safe person is a way so that is one step that can be taken. And you are allowed to choose whether you want to do it or not. Yeah, okay. So I'll leave that there. All right, any other thoughts on that? On the steps for people pleasers? Okay. So now we'll get into King Saul. King Saul, the people pleaser. King Saul. So King Saul was the first king of Israel. We're going to look at him in 1 Samuel chapter 15. Look at an example of King Saul. King Saul was Israel went to war with the Amalekites. So this is actually ironic with your question about the war. But Israel went to war with the Amalekites, and God told Saul to utterly destroy the Amalekites and all they possessed. So God told Saul to. So there was two types of wars. There was a regular war, where generally the soldiers fought. In defeat, you may keep the king. You don't fight the women and the children. You take all of their good stuff. You take all of their good stuff for your own. And then there was the war where God was declaring war against them, Karam, utter destruction, where they were to destroy everything, the men, the women, the children, the animals. And this was one of those. So Saul went, and I'm going to talk about that later. Saul went to war with the Amalekites, and he defeated them. He kept the king, and he kept the good animals. He kept some of the good animals. So I'll read now 1 Samuel 15, 12 through 26. And Samuel was the prophet who he anointed Saul as king, and God would speak through Samuel to Saul. So Samuel, verse 12, 1 Samuel 15, verse 12 says, Samuel got up early in the morning to meet Saul. And it was reported to Samuel, saying, Saul came to Carmel, and behold, he set up a monument for himself, then turned and proceeded on down to Gilgal. So Saul won the war, and then he went up and set up a monument for himself. So Samuel came to Saul and said to him, Blessed are you of the Lord. I have carried out the command of the Lord. So Saul said, Hey, I did what the Lord asked me. But Samuel said, What is this bleating of sheep in my ears and the bellowing of oxen that I hear? He said, If you carried out what the Lord said, how come I hear sheep? How come I hear the cows? You're supposed to kill them. And then Saul said, They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to be sacrificed to the Lord, your God. But the rest we have completely destroyed. So Saul saying, Well, the people, they did it. They kept the good ones to sacrifice to your God. And then Samuel said to Saul, Stop. Let me inform you what the Lord said to me last night. And he said to him, Speak. So Saul he's like, No, the people. So Samuel said, so Saul said, no, those people, they kept the good ones, but they kept them to sacrifice for the Lord. And he was coming up with excuses, and Samuel just said, Stop, just stop. I had enough. He said, Okay, let me tell you what the Lord said. So Samuel said, Is it not true that you were insignificant in your own eyes, that you became the head of the tribes of Israel? For the Lord anointed you as king over Israel, and the Lord sent you on a mission and said, Go and completely destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are eliminated. Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Instead, you loudly rushed upon the spoils and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. Then Saul said to Samuel, I did obey the voice of the Lord, for I went on the mission that the Lord sent me, and I brought back Agag, the king of Amalek, and I've completely destroyed the Amalekites. He said, I completely destroyed them, and I spared their king. But the people took some of the spoil. The people took some of the spoils, sheep and oxen, the choicest of things designated for destruction, to sacrifice to the Lord your God at Gilgal. He's like, your God. The people did it for your God. So it had nothing to do with me. The people did it for your God. So it's between you and them. Samuel said, does the Lord have as much delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to pay attention is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is reprehensible, and the sin of divination, as the sin of divination. And insubordination is reprehensible as false religion and idolatry, which were the worst. Since you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you from being king. Then Samuel said, I have sinned. Saul said to Samuel. Samuel told Saul, since you didn't obey God, you're not going to be king anymore. And Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have violated the command of the Lord and the words, because I feared the people and listened to their voice. Now then, please pardon my sin and return with me, so I may worship the Lord. But Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. So Saul finally admitted it. Okay, I sinned, but I did it because I was afraid of the people, what the people were going to say. He said, so please pardon my sin. And now let's go worship. Let's go worship. So there was Saul the people pleaser. So let's see. So let's quickly get into. I'll just quickly go over the utter destruction point. God told them to utterly destroy the Amalekites. Karam. So Karam, utterly destroy, was a form of warfare meant to consecrate, devote, dedicate to destruction. So it was dedicate to destruction everything of the Amalekites. Exterminate, completely destroy. So it was both a form of war and it was a form of worship. So who were the Amalekites? So you remember the war when Moses, they were at war and he had to hold his arm up. As long as he held his arm up, they would win. And if it fell down, then they would lose. And so people helped him hold his arm up. So that was the Amalekites. We also saw the Amalekites in Deuteronomy 25:17-29, which is one of the atrocities they did against Israel. It says, Deuteronomy 25:17-19. It says, remember what the Amalekites did to you along your way to Egypt? How they met you on your journey when you were tired and weary, and they attacked all your stragglers. They had no fear of God. When the Lord your God gives you rest from the enemies around you in the land that he gives to possession as an inheritance, you are to blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. So after they escaped Israel, there was, a million of them. There was a lot of them. And they were going through the desert. So obviously the people who were tired and the old people and weak were way in the back. And so the Amalekites would come and rob and kill the weak people that were in the back. As they were 40 years going through the desert, they would ambush the people in the back, the weakest of the group. We also say they're Amalekites. So he spared King Agag. Haman, in the story of Esther, Haman was the one who wanted to kill all of the Israelites. So Haman was actually an Amalekite. He was a descendant of Agag, the king that Saul saved. And King David was the one who ended up wiping out the Amalekites. And in the final battle with the Amalekites is the battle that Saul and Jonathan were killed in. So in Judaism, in the Jewish religion, the Amalekites come to represent the archetypical enemy of the Jews. So it's like this is what, and they're also considered to be a symbol of evil. So the Amalekites are literal people, but they're also a metaphor for sin. Sometimes it's a metaphor for sin. So this was the utter destruction that the Lord requested. Okay, so we saw what Saul did. Saul in 2 Samuel verses 15. In what ways was Saul people pleasing. In what way was Saul a people pleaser that you guys saw in those passages? And was Saul operating out of love or fear?
Sorry, what was that, Michael?
Was Saul operating out of love or fear? He was operating out of fear of man. He was afraid of what the people would say. So let's see. So can you guys think of any of traits that he exhibited? Okay. So let's see. One was that he was narcissistic.
He set up a monument in his own honor.
Yeah. Yeah, he set up a monument in his own honor. Yeah, he was narcissistic. He set up a monument in his own honor. He wanted the praise from the people. Saul wanted praise from the people. We saw that in verse 12. It says he set up a monument in Carmel to himself. Instead of setting up a monument to God, he set up a monument to himself. He wanted the praise of the people. Let's see, who has John 5:44?
That would be me.
Okay.
Oh, are you sure?
I'm positive.
I thought I had it, but it's okay. You can read it. It's cool with me.
You want to take it?
No, you can take it.
Okay. I also have Exodus, so I have another one. But okay. John 5:44. This is out of NIV. How can you believe since you accept glory from one another, but do not seek the glory that comes from the only God?
Right. You accept glory from one another, but you don't seek glory from God. So he built a statue for himself. He wanted glory from the people. He wasn't looking for glory of God. Mm-hmm. So good thing that that was your answer, Angel. So he wanted praise from the people. He wanted praise from the people. He set up a monument for himself. What other traits, people please? What are some negative traits that we saw Saul exhibiting? I mean, that was negative. Some other negative traits. In verse 15, he says, they have brought them from the Amalekites. The people spared the best of the sheep, of the oxen. So he was blaming the other people. He was blaming other people. You know, he wouldn't confess up to his downfalls. And he was minimizing the issues. He was blaming other people. And we also see in verse 21, we see him lying. It says, but the people took some of the spoiled sheep and oxen, the choicest of things designated for destruction, to sacrifice to the Lord, your God, at Gilgal. So he's blaming others still, and he's saying, oh, they did it for sacrifice. It's like, well, God told you not to keep them. And then we see in verse 24 that he feared the people, It says, then Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I violated the command of the Lord in your words, because I feared the people and listened to their voice. So he feared the people, and because he feared the people, he disobeyed God. And so then when confronted with it, he started rationalizing. Oh, well, we kept the best of them to sacrifice. We did it for a sacrifice. And then in verse 25, he's trying to deflect the blame from himself. He says, now then, he says, please pardon my sin and return with me so I may go to worship. So it's like, yeah, I did it. I did the wrong thing, but yeah, let's go ahead. Let's go watch the game. You know, he's like, yeah, please. He said, yeah. He said, okay, you're right. I sinned, but please pardon my sin. Let's go worship the Lord. It's like, yeah, I sinned. Let's not worry about that. Let's go. I know you like worshiping. Let's go worship. Let's go worship now. So Saul. So these are some of the pitfalls we can all fall into from people pleasing. So these are some of the pitfalls that we can all fall into from people pleasing. and how people pleasing can affect our Christianity. So what are some of the pitfalls that we can fall into? Either some of the same or others that we can fall into if we people please. As a Christian, what are some pitfalls we can fall into if we're trying to please people? Not all at once.
Well, if we're trying to please people and we're not trying to please God, or we're trying to please people instead of pleasing God, then we're not obeying, and we're not necessarily doing what He is asking us to do or trying to ask us to do, because we're like ignoring Him. If He said, okay, I want you to go talk to this person, I want you to go do this, and you kind of justify your own disobedience, or oh, but if I go over there and talk to them, they're gonna think I'm stupid, or they're gonna call me crazy, or they're
Right.
gonna
Yeah.
say this or do this, or they're gonna reject me, or
Yeah. Yeah, that's one. Yeah, definitely. If when we're evangelism, you're vulnerable to. Yeah, definitely you become vulnerable. Evangelism, God says, go talk to this person. It's like, ooh, what if they don't? Yeah, definitely God tells you to evangelize, you feel the Spirit wanting you to evangelize. If you want to people please, it can deter you. It can deter you.
we
Definitely.
miss out on God's blessings, and we miss out on what it was that the other person may have needed.
Yeah, you miss out on the.
To them, because we didn't do what we were supposed to do.
Exactly. Yeah, you miss out and the other person missed out. Maybe they missed out on salvation, or it's just maybe God had told you to do something for them and you weren't really sure. I don't know if they don't really look like too friendly, like they really want my help. Maybe I'll just let them go on. Yeah, so we miss out on an opportunity to be a blessing. Maybe they had prayed, God, if you're real, then have somebody come over here and help me do this or something. And you were going to be the vessel to prove God's existence to them. We're disciples of Christ. Not easy, but we're supposed to do it in a loving way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're supposed to be disciples of Christ. We're supposed to follow what He says. So one thing that people-pleasing can do is it can cause us to be chameleons, which we talked about. Who has Luke 16:15?
He said to them, you are the ones who justify yourselves in the eyes of others, but God knows your hearts. What people value highly is detestable in God's sight. Right.
Yeah. So we're worried about what people value, but we're supposed to be worried about God. So it can cause us to be a chameleon. We're worried about what people think, so we act one way here. We wear masks. We wear masks when we're not afraid of the virus. We're today we're this, the next day we're that. We're trying to please everybody, but we're not necessarily the same in every group. With this group, I'm super Christian. With this group, we talk about this other stuff. With this group, I'm this way. With this group, I do that. We lead, multiple lives. Integrity is more important than popularity. Integrity is more important than popularity.
Amen.
Another thing, which Angel alluded to, is it hurts your witness. Who has John 12, people pleasing can hurt your witness? Who has John 12, 42 to 43?
I actually have that. Yet at the same time, many even among the leaders believe in him. But because of the Pharisees, they would not openly acknowledge their faith for fear they would be put out of the synagogue. For they love human praise more than the praise from God.
They love human praise more than the praise of God. So they wouldn't openly confess that they believed in Jesus. They couldn't confess their faith. So that's one of the traps that we can fall into. We're worried about what people think, kind of like an angel mentioned. There it is. Yes, exactly. So who around you would know about Jesus if you weren't worried about what other people thought? Who around you would know about Jesus, or who's crossed your path would know about Jesus if you weren't worried about what other people thought? So it can hurt our witness, people pleasing, worried about people's opinions, people's reactions. It can hurt our witness. So now where it's going to get interesting. So people pleasing could also cause us to be politically correct instead of saying what's true. It can cause us to say what's politically correct instead of saying what's true. Who has 1 Thessalonians 2 verses 3 through 4?
I do.
Okay.
For the claim we make does not spring from error or impure motives, nor are we trying to trick you. On the contrary, we speak as those approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel. We are not trying to please people, but God who tests our hearts.
Right. So we're not trying to please people, but we're trying to please God. So sometimes we want to please people. We want to be, we don't want to speak up. You know, when there's somebody that says something about God, or there's something, we don't want to speak up. You know, sometimes silence is golden. Sometimes silence is wise, but other times silence is cowardly. So, I mean, you don't necessarily, everybody doesn't need to know that you disagree with them in every situation. So, you know, we don't need to go telling everybody, hey, that's a sin. Hey, don't do it. You know, we don't need to be, you know, always disagreeing with people all the time. But sometimes when it's appropriate, we don't speak up. You know, we want to hide our opinion because we don't want others to judge us. You know, so whose opinion matters more? Your friend's opinion or God's opinion? Your child's, your parents, your friends, your coworkers, your bosses, or God's opinion? Whose opinion matters more? And so there's a fine line. There's a fine line between, you know, being, you don't want to be like the overly confrontational person, but then again, you don't want to be the cowardly, not speaking up for what's right. So I mean, you don't, you know, so there, you don't necessarily always have to point out things to everyone, but then again, you don't want to cower from it because you're worried about it as well. So there's a fine line that we need to tread. Any thoughts on that? Amen. Yeah. Loving also means knowing when to go easy too. Yes, that is true. Yeah, knowing when to go easy. I mean, some people, you know, especially if they've had things said to them all their lives, you know, it's not going to help, you know. So, I mean, you also have to listen to the Holy Spirit. Listen to the Holy Spirit. You know, calling somebody out isn't always going to help them. Because the goal, if you're doing it out of love, it's not just to be self-righteous. The goal is to help the other person.
Amen.
So it's not, you know, it's not always going to help the other person. Some folks just aren't ready for all. Yeah, it's not always going to help the other person. But we don't want to not do it out of fear, but we also want to use wisdom. We want to be doing it out of love. We're doing it out of a place of love, not out of a place of I hate what you're doing. So it should be out of a place of I love you and I want better for you, not out of a place of I hate you because you're a this, I hate you because you're a that. You know, that shouldn't be the place that we're speaking out of. It should be out of I love you and I want better for you. You know, if that's not the place you're coming from, then maybe silence is golden. You know, if you're speaking out of a point of, oh, I hate people who do this, I hate people that do that, then maybe silence is your best approach. And you should work on yourself. Another thing is, it can lead you to disobedience, like we saw. So people pleasing can lead you to disobedience. Who has Exodus 23:2?
That would be me.
Okay.
Sorry.
Exodus 23:2.
Yep. Out of the NIV. So do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd.
Yeah. So do not follow with the crowd in doing wrong. That's a commandment. Don't give in to peer pressure. Don't give in to peer pressure. So we saw Saul give in to peer pressure. It was the people. It was the people. Other examples we see in the Bible, Pontius Pilate. Do you want Jesus or do you want Barabbas? I find no fault in this man, but I'm going to kill him anyway because that's what you guys want. To know when to be. Wonder if the option. Well, we do have the option. I'm not sure if that's the reason, but yeah. I'm sure that. And so, in Proverbs is feminine. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and so Pontius Pilate, we saw him people pleasing. Aaron, when the people wanted to build a golden calf, Aaron actually built the golden calf. They wanted him to build it, so he built the golden calf. He was people pleasing. So ask yourself, in what area in my life am I caving into the expectation of other people to win approval or to avoid rejection? When people become bigger than God, they overshadow God's authority in your life. When people become bigger than God, they overshadow God's authority in your life. And so we're going to go somewhere we don't usually go. but for the sake of not people pleasing. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about politics here. So it says, you shall not follow the crowd in doing evil. So we're going to talk about both sides because I'm not really a political person, but so you should not follow the crowd in doing evil. So we definitely saw people following the crowd, attack of the Capitol building, I think it was. They were Christians, some of us knew in there, but following the crowd, doing evil, definitely some evil things going on. Obviously we know that, there were other groups involved, but we can get caught up as Christians into evil things. So that's one side. And the other side, so I got a response, the email that I sent out about this class, one of our, I'll leave them nameless, our classmates, previous classmates, sent this as a response. And so I'll read it. He said, this pandemic has exposed the true pandemic, the people-pleasing, state-pleasing, politically correct focus of all but a handful of churches has provoked weak, fearful Christians who are more than willing to disobey the Lord if doing so helps them temporarily avoid even the slightest disfavor in eyes of state and popular culture. So he's talking about the fact that, some churches weren't meeting and things regarding, because of the state mandate, following the state, fearing. So he's seeing that as fearing people versus following the Lord. And it is, in some sense. So there is a distinction between some people were afraid of dying, and that's different than fearing people. Some people were afraid of dying, and that's a different thing. Mm-hmm. But there is a point that a lot of you would think that there would have been more pushback from some churches for some when things were open, but churches weren't. And a lot of times people will, there are Bible verses that tell us we should obey authority. There are Bible verses that tell us we should obey authority, and so a lot of people overlook those, the proponents. But if in the whole time of Christianity they would have only met when it was legal, the Bible would have stopped at the book of Acts. You know, you think of how much of the New Testament was written in jail. How much of the New Testament was written in jail. So I'll leave that horse there. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on that? I don't want to go down those paths too much, but amen. Caving the current
I just
culture
want to touch
erodes
on
away
the
Christianity. Yes.
thinking. I did want
Yes.
to mention about being a follower, because we are followers of Christ,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
so there is, as a Christian, we do follow, towards the crowds with, there's faith, right? Within the church, and discipling is bringing in, additional thought, right? So I think there should be maybe added text after that, maybe following in wrongdoing, right? Following in evil or in sin or something like that, right? Because there is good in following, especially.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So people pleasing isn't not necessarily saying don't do what everybody else is doing. It's saying don't do it just because people are doing it. So I mean, everybody else is brushing their teeth. Everybody else is using deodorant. So, we're not saying don't do it because everybody else is doing it. We're saying don't do it. No, we're not saying don't do it just because everybody else is doing it. We're saying don't do it if the only reason you're doing it, like if you feel you shouldn't be doing it, but you're only doing it because everybody else is doing it. So because the fact that everybody else is doing it doesn't make it wrong. So it's often wise to follow the wisdom of the crowd. Actually, most of the time, the majority of the time, you want to follow the wisdom of the crowd. You want to follow the wisdom, the reason you want to follow, society was set, it succeeded because, things were tried and failed and things have worked. So you generally do, but there are times when you don't. But yeah, it's not wrong to follow the crowd. It's just wrong to do it if the only reason you're doing it is because you're following the crowd. If you feel that what you're doing is what God is telling you to do, then if the crowd is doing it, that's great. If the crowd isn't doing it, then, you follow God. But the fact that the crowd, in that sense, the fact whether the crowd is doing it or not is not a factor in that. It's a factor in how easy it will be, obviously. By law were required. Enough said. Only by law were required. Okay. Okay. Did that speak to what you're saying, Kikwa, or was that the same topic?
Absolutely. I was just, trying to say that so that there was no confusion around that, because that was my comprehension, right? Follow within reason, understand what you're following, doing it for the right reasons, right?
Yeah, follow within reason. Yeah, and just like the same thing, the person who wrote that also had an issue with people meeting on Zoom. He's like, the Bible says we're supposed to meet in person, but I always had an issue with it. But we're getting too far on this, but anyway, I always had an issue with, from my own pulpit, I've heard people say pre-pandemic that the Bible says don't neglect gathering, and that it's not the same watching online. They were saying that I've heard that said from my pulpit, but then once we went online, now it's okay. It's without being addressed. You gotta. It's are we not gonna address this? But when they said it, I didn't really agree with that then. I didn't think it was wrong to meet online then. But it's but you can't say it's wrong and now just switch without addressing it. It's let's address. I didn't think it was wrong to meet online, but it's but now that we're switching it, listen. We're not gonna bring this up. We're gonna. But I didn't agree with it back then when people used to say that their meeting online was wrong. I never saw an issue with it because I think, obviously the context, they didn't have the technology we have back then.
And I don't see where the wrong is. As long as you got a message, right?
Yeah.
You're sending out, talking about God, you're discussing the Bible, your faith and all that. Why does it matter that it's virtual?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a matter of interpretation, and so I don't want to go too far down. Yeah, it's just how you interpret it. If people, and then, a lot of people will base a lot on one particular verse, but it's a matter of interpretation, I guess. Let's see. So another issue you can fall into, we're gathering nonetheless. Yeah, we are gathering nonetheless. Yeah, that's my take on it. We're gathering. And that was my take on it pre-pandemic, is that people want to search online. It's still gathering. I imagine that pre-pandemic, pastors had an issue with it because, well, never mind. So anyway, we'll move on from that. Okay, people become your idol. So another issue with people pleasing is that people can become your idol. Who has John 5:44?
Oh, you had it twice then, because we just read that earlier.
Oh, okay. Oh, maybe. That was the confusing. Yeah. Oh, I have it twice. Okay. I plugged it in. Okay. All right. You want to read it this time, Peter?
You know what? I actually deleted that from my computer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem. John, what is it?
5:44. Ooh, am I gonna?
Let me start from 40 to 44. How's that? That's what count like?
Okay. Oh, can you speak a little louder? Let's see.
Sorry about that. Oh,
Okay.
Hi. Better?
Yes.
Okay, 540. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let me get over here first. Oh, it won't let me. You know what? Hold on, Michael. Hold on. Sorry about that. John 5. Let me see if I can get this over here. Yeah. Okay. Let me go from 40 to 45. He says, "Yet you refuse to come to me to have life," and that's in verse 40. "I do not accept the glory from human beings, but I know you. I know that you do not have the love of God in your hearts. I have come in my Father's name, and you do not accept me. But if someone else comes in his own name, you will accept him. How can you believe, since you accept glory from one another, but do not seek the glory that comes from the only God? But do not think I will accuse you before the Father. Your accuser is Moses, on whom your hopes are set."
Amen. Yeah. How can you accept glory from one another, but don't accept glory from God? So as we said, whose opinion matters? Your clients, your coworkers, your kids, your spouse, your church friends. Do your church friends' opinion matter? And Elder Anthony talked about at the huddle an example. I asked him, could I talk about this? He's a salesperson, and one time he was at work. He said he was talking to a client, he's trying to sell this guy on something, and the guy mentioned something he was going through, and he says he felt the Holy, and he's in a room full of salespeople, and he felt the Holy Spirit say, "Pray for him," and he's like, "I can't pray for him." He's like, our calls are being recorded. I got a room full of my coworkers. They're not Christian. I don't think I can't pray for this guy. And then he felt the Holy Spirit. So he said, "Well, do you mind if I pray for you?" And the guy said, "Yeah, go ahead." And so he prayed for the guy. Amen. Thank you. So he prayed for the guy. He prayed for the guy on the phone, and the guy afterwards thanked him, said he really needed that. And so he was willing to to risk, his reputation at work, potentially his job, other people aren't idle. So he wasn't worried about the opinion of his coworkers and other friends. So don't let other people's opinion be more important than God's opinion. Don't worship other people. Even like in a relationship, I don't want I don't want this person to leave me. So because they're, I can't live without them. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to keep them. So, but God is the only God that we serve. And finally, people pleasing can hinder you finding your purpose. So how are you going to find your purpose if you're fixated on doing what makes other people happy? So your purpose in life. And so I mentioned last week that I felt God leading me to, like, I've kind of shifted up I didn't really have, my social media presence was all private prior, but during the pandemic I switched to public, and it's pretty much a Christian identity, and I switched it up, but it can hinder you from finding your purpose. Oh, yeah. Welcome, Frederick. It can hinder you from finding your purpose. I just realized somebody else who I know was also a Christian social media person, and I realized many of his recent posts weren't necessarily bad, but they're just kind of like funny and reactions and stuff. But then I went back and noticed that he had a post that was a reaction post that got like 4 million views. And then after that, he went and erased all his Christian posts, and is just now trying to do the funny reaction stuff, whether it's, and some of it's kind of questionable, but because that was what he was getting a lot of responses to it. He was getting a lot of responses to it, and he's getting way more likes now, getting way more. He gained a bunch of followers, and so he switched his whole image and this whole thing for it. So it can hinder you from finding your purpose, people pleasing. So you need the courage to follow what God calls you to do. Now let me talk about some practical steps we can take to avoid the people pleasing. One is to find out your true identity. Find your true identity. And I have a video. I do not have a video. I can't share for some reason. Okay. Well, I'll play the sound. It's
I think when people say, just be yourself, what they're trying to say is don't try to manipulate the situation. Like, don't try to anticipate everyone's expectations. Mold yourself to that. Just be honest. Be yourself. But it's hard to know what yourself is. Like, sometimes there's a lot of contradictory voices in there, all fighting for different things. Like, maybe you're on a date and a version of you is really excited about this date and finds the person to be an interesting prospect, but another version of you doesn't find them very physically attractive. And then there's another version of you that feels really guilty about even thinking that. And that you should be more compassionate, you shouldn't be so judgy. And another version of you that, I don't know, doesn't even really want to be on a date, that kind of likes their independence, that is worried that they're going to get their heart broken. Another version of you that is really lonely and would really like some companionship. And you're trying to get all these people together and agree, but they seem to all fight and want different things. So what can we do? Well, the first option might be to get everyone to fight with each other and argue and yell over the table and, pick which person's right and then exile the rest of them. That's one option. Another option would be to listen to each part, to be compassionate, to try to understand what's motivating each person to have the perspective that they have. What are they trying to protect? What are they trying to accomplish? To have some self-reflection. It's slower. It kind of takes a lot of reflection. It's a little bit abstract, but maybe it'll lead to something more grounded in your values. Maybe it'll lead to something that feels a bit more whole. I think.
So basically, he's talking about the beginning how, be yourself, but there's a lot of versions of ourselves. Sometimes we feel different ways at different times. So try to identify what's your true thoughts. try to identify your true thoughts. A lot of times we'll say things, especially in church or Bible study, we'll say things that sound good, but try to identify what is really you. What do you really believe? When you say something, notice when you say something, do you really, how much of a conviction do you have actually for it? Or are you just saying something that sounds good? So try to take notice of that in your conversation. Are you when you say it, does it make you feel stronger or does it make you feel weaker? Are you hiding something behind your words? The next way to overcome people pleasing is to let pleasing God become bigger than pleasing people for you. Let pleasing God become bigger than pleasing people. Who has Luke 16:15?
Of course, I can do it again. He said to them, "You are the ones who justify yourselves in the eyes of others, but God knows your hearts. What people value highly is detestable in God's sight."
Right, what people value highly is detestable in God's sight. So let pleasing God become bigger than pleasing people in your life. So worry about God's opinion. So that's kind of what the term fear of God. So fear of God doesn't just mean I'm afraid God will punish me, because that's contrast with fear of man. So fear of man, you're not thinking, oh, these people are going to kill me. You're just worried about what they're going to think about you. So it's the same with fear of God. You should be worried about what God is going to think about you more than you're worried about what other people are going to think about you. Next thing to do is to identify your intentions. Who are you performing for? Who are you trying to impress? Why are you doing this? Are you doing this out of love? Are you doing this out of a place of love? Or are you doing this out of a place of fear? Are you afraid of what people are going to think? Are you afraid of this going to start a fight? Are you trying to avoid an argument? Identify what your intentions are. And then lastly, again, to put your identity in Christ. Put your identity in Christ. So in Matthew 10:32, it says, "Therefore, everyone who confesses me before people, I will also confess him before my Father who is in heaven." So Jesus says if you confess him before people, he will confess you. So put our identity in Christ. And so a picture of that, so I had this in my notes for a couple weeks, this example, and those of you who were at church would have seen Pastor Gary giving a similar example, although I guess those of you at church also saw me use pretty much a similar example in the men's huddle, so you'll know it was original. But anyway, but think of it in terms of an Olympic athlete. You're putting your identity in Christ. So we have people the Olympics are here now. We have Olympic athletes, people that as children, they were pulled aside and they were set apart because they were thought to have something special. They were set apart and they were going to train and live their lives for this goal, for the honor of representing their country. And we're all okay with that. We're going to pull the children aside for the honor of representing their country. Even though, in some situations they could get lifelong injuries from it, but it's, for the honor of, it's an honor to be able to be an Olympic athlete. And we're okay with that, and as an Olympic athlete, it's going to impact what schools they can go to. It's going to impact what schools they can go to, because if I'm going to be an Olympic track star, I can't go to a college that has a sorry track team, or I can't go to a high school that doesn't have good, so it's going to impact what schools they can go to. It's going to impact what they can eat. They're not going to be out eating cheeseburgers and fries and shakes. It can impact what they drink. If Olympians, we understand them making these choices to be in the Olympics. Are we making these choices to be a Christian? As an Olympian, they can't take some jobs. If you're going to be an Olympic athlete, there's some jobs you can't take because it's not going to fit into your schedule. As an Olympic athlete, you can't take some job. As an Olympic athlete, there's some activities that you can't do. You can't do what the other kids are doing. If you're an Olympic athlete, you're going to miss out on some of the parties. You're an Olympic athlete. If you're an Olympic athlete, you got to wake up earlier because you got things that you have to do that other people don't have to do. You're going to have to wake up earlier. You may have to be training later than other people. because you're an Olympic athlete. But you're going to be in the Olympic Games. It's a game. And so if people can do this for a game, and we honor them for doing this for a game, how much more can we not be different doing these things as a Christian? Living differently because we're a Christian and not people pleasing. So it's just in the same way they have to live a different type of life in the same way. So that's what it is to put your identity in Christ. Their identity, they're an Olympic athlete. If you know them, any friends that know them, you're going to know they're an Olympic athlete. If your son or daughter has a friend who's an Olympic athlete, you're going to know it pretty soon that they're an Olympic athlete, or they will know it because they're living differently. And so their identity is being an Olympic athlete. Their life is centered around their being an Olympic athlete. So that's what it means to have your identity in Christ. That's what it is to have your identity in Christ. And so we don't want to let the people pleasing get in the way of us having our identity in Christ. So let's walk in the way. Let's seek the truth and live the life. All right. Any thoughts? Praying for a new job. Amen. Let's pray for a good one and for you. See any thoughts anybody have? Oh, people's opinion. Yeah, God works fast sometimes, yes. Any thoughts? Any takeaways? No? All right. Let's see, Peter, you want to pray us out?
You bet. Let's go from there.
All right.
Father, you are good. Thank you so much for teaching us many things in this world. We live in a very difficult time, and far worse as the world is continuing to spiral down. And so, Father, we ask for not only just the survival skills, but the spiritual insights into your word and how to actually apply it. It is so difficult, Lord, sometimes to live in this world, but yet Jesus lived in a very difficult time without any forms of modern appliances, dealing with people that are very stuck in their thinking, and they will not reframe their mind of understanding. So, Father, we also live in a world that's constantly trending and changing, but yet we're cycling back to the old days, going back to the basic of stubborn man and sin. And sometimes, Lord, with our wisdom and with our understanding, we try to live in such a way that is a blessing, Father, be an extension of your hands, but yet very difficult, Lord, in this world. So we ask for your understanding, Father. We ask for your guidance. We ask for creativity, courage, the skill and the will not to compromise in any way. The desire is, Lord, to always focus on you and not anyone else, regardless. I'd rather be judged by God than to be judged by man. And so, Father, I pray that each and every one of us live in such a way that is non-compromising, that we don't please others for the sake of ourselves, so that we can be left blameless, but yet when we turn around at night, we get on our knees and we ask and we beg for forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, Father, we pray that you give us the strength to cling onto the cross, that we can walk side by side with the cross, that we have a testimony in such a way that at the end we can always hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter in the joy of the Lord." So, Father, that is the ultimate words that we can always hear. And so, Father, we pray that in the things that we do every day in our lives, Lord, even if our flesh got in our way, even if our pride got in our way, and even if our reputation got in the way, Father, We ask that you give us the strength to overcome these, to walk in humbleness, to know that you are always watching us, whether in our hearts, in our thoughts, in our motive, in our lives. So, Father, we pray that you give us that understanding heart to prepare us the moment we open our eyes in the morning, that we make up our minds never to compromise. And if we do fall, Father, that you may give us the wisdom and understanding that you are a God that forgives, and that you're always a type of God that always give us a second chance to live on this earth again and again and again. Help us never to compromise anything that we do in this life, Father. Let us be a fragrance to everything that we say and do, so that people can see the good works in us and glorify who you are in heaven. And Father, that they may get a chance to rejoice, and that our pathways and our footstep will lead them closer to you and further away from us. Father, thank you very much for Mike's preparation. It took a lot of time, a lot of hours to filter through. You channeled many things through the right way. And to be able to express, Lord, what you carved into his life. And so, Father, we pray that the moment we sleep tonight, we make up our mind for tomorrow morning, that we live in an uncompromised way, that we can always give glory to you on a day-to-day basis, not only in speech, in our thoughts, in our actions, but in our everyday motive, Lord, every single thing that we do, that our life is
I think we lost you.
Yeah, sorry.
Mike, are you there?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay, just want to make sure.
All right. I think I missed the end of it. I think it.
Did you?
Yeah, the connection came on. Or I guess.
Oh.
Sorry, lost it.
But yeah. Thank you.
Praise
Thank
God.
you. Praise God.
Thank you very much for
Thank you. Thank you for that prayer.
Thank you for spending so much time into all your prep work.
Oh, you're
Appreciate
welcome.
your hard work always.
You're welcome.
He does.
Yeah, glad to see everybody here.